Hi everyone and welcome along. I've been brightening up the studio with a few more paintings, a bit more colour, because I'm just desperate for spring to arrive, so I thought I could usher it in with a few more flowers in the studio. And because we've got a lovely bunch of flowers, I thought why not paint them? So we're going to do a really lovely spring watering can with some flowers in. So grab your paints and let's get started. Okay, so we are going to create this little scene. And to begin with, I'm going to draw in a slightly stylised watering can. So we've got two lines and then curve the bottom. And then we'll get the spout with a sprinkling nozzle. And little handle like that. And what I'd really like to try is to paint some of these lovely flowers in a rather sort of loose manner. So we've got gerberas here, some snapdragons, some stocks, and then some flowers I've forgotten the name of. Can you remind me what these are? Just not got my notes to one side. But anyway, aren't they beautiful pink, purpley, fresh spring colours? I really love them. So, and if you want more of a reference of those flowers, you can always go back to the beginning, the intro of this video, where those flowers were just sat on the side with me, and you could do a little screen grab if you wanted. But for now, I'm just going to wake up the colours. So I'll move my painting off to one side, and actually I'll bring the flowers back in so we can have a look at these colours. Opera rose, permanent rose, definitely. And then some lighter yellowy tones. We've got lemon yellow there, buff titanium, bit of cadmium yellow I think as well, be useful. And then we've got imperial purple, and then just our greens down here. Oh look, that's handy having the stems literally in our green. Sap green and green gold will do us very nicely. I must say, gerberas never used to be my favourite flowers, so I like this one with the pinky centre as well. Now what I want to do is I want to create this little arrangement in quite a loose style. The one thing that might be helpful is to sort of draw yourself a little sort of halo of where you roughly want the painting to happen. But otherwise, I think we just need to go for it. And this is going to be a great exercise in sort of trying to loosen up and paint freely. So we're going to be painting a nice loose watercolour arrangement. So I'm going to begin with my size 2 brush and just scribbling in with my opera rose some very loose gerberas. And at this point, that's all I need to do. I'm now going to just change up my colour a little bit. So I'm going to add in some yellow ochre to my opera rose, make it just a little bit more peachy. And I'm going to paint in some very loose snapdragons. So the way I'm doing this is I'm sort of imagining a trajectory, imagining a stem line, leaving lots of nice unpainted space there up the middle. And then with a slightly smaller brush, I'm going to take some green gold and just do a very delicate little bit of stem work down the middle. If painting loosely is a little bit scary to you, then this is a really nice exercise, because what we're doing here is we're painting on quite a small scale, and usually painting loosely is all about getting large brushes out, large scale stuff. In fact, we've got a really good exercise on Friday in the quick fix that you'll enjoy if you are keen to paint on a slightly more loose style and on the sort of more traditional loose large scale. So yeah, watch out for that on Friday in the quick fix. But for now, I think for anyone who, like me, when I first started doing anything of less than very, very detailed work, I wasn't really sure about how to go about it. Right, I'm going to pop in another one there. So I'm just sort of squashing the brush. I might just add a little bit more colour in there. And then just hitting those little bits down the middle. And of course we need to make sure that we aim for our vase opening. So that one, we might have to cheat it a tiny bit. Now, let's pop in some of these lovely long, slightly purpley flowers. So I'm going to take some Imperial Purple and add in a little bit of Permanent Rose, Opera Rose, I beg your pardon. And I'll take my size 0 brush and start to dab in sort of a much smaller version of the snapdragons, really. And I'm sort of roughly avoiding the flowers getting too close to one another because they are wet and loose and things, but at the same time it's not the end of the world, because we want this piece to have that lovely loose quality to it. And then it sort of, the flower ends with a sort of greenish tip. And what's going to be lovely is lots of things are going to sort of appear and happen with the wetness is just going to slowly blend and bleed and do things we weren't quite expecting. So I'm now going to take some yellow ochre, not yellow ochre, some cadmium yellow and some lemon yellow. I might add the tiniest bit of buff titanium in as well, and I'm going to paint in a few of these little ones. Little flowers are great because they can be really good filler for when you've got larger flowers sort of taking up a lot of room. So I'm just going to paint in clusters of these. And I'm aware that I've got this sort of kind of gaping void in the middle, and that can very easily happen when you're painting an arrangement, because you sort of send the flowers out here, there and everywhere. But don't worry, we'll find something to put in there. So I'm just having a look at the general sort of outline shape that I put in at the beginning. You might start to get a few leaves in there as well. And even though this is loose, I am still looking at the real thing. In fact, let's swap this one over whilst I'm doing this. Look at these amazing leaves. They are these wonderfully curved things. With a sort of 3-prong leaf going on. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry just a little bit more, and then we can look at placing a few more bits in the middle and just a little bit more detail. So I've given that a little bit more drying time, and now I'm just going to get a little bit more Opera Rose woken up, and I'm going to place in another gerbera, but it's going to just sort of come down over the front there. I can place in another that's sort of just looking upwards there, and just, yeah, you can see that you can quite easily fill in things by just giving it a moment to dry, so that you don't just paint in a big blobby mess. And then whilst that's drying, you can look at other places and sort of start to add in just a little bits of detail here and there, maybe just a slightly more sort of concentrated colour on top of what you've already painted. So if I get a bit more Opera Rose with the yellow ochre, our snapdragons suddenly have a bit more about them. And what I can still see of my gerberas, I'm going to now get a bit of permanent rose, and we're going to start to just add in a little bit more around the middle. So you can see even the detail is still very loose, very fluid and free. But you're just starting to build a picture. And of course, once these ones are dry, we can add a bit more into them. So it's just a case of slowly building up the detail. There's just that little bit of green gold in the middle of those. And then I'll probably just put in a few little dilute leaves in the gaps, a few little scribbles, just to fill it in like that. And there you have a really nice loose floral bouquet that, even in spite of it being not that detailed and quite small, I feel like you can see individual things sticking out there. Now, we are now going to focus on the watering can. So I've got some Payne's Grey here and also some Cobalt Blue Deep. And I just think together they make a rather nice colour. And I'm just going to go for it with my size 4 brush. And I'm going to paint this quite loosely too, using unpainted space to create a sense of roundness and shine. And then I usually just go down to a slightly smaller brush as we get closer to the top, and obviously make sure your flowers at the top there are dry. And I will just pop in a slightly more concentrated colour at the top there. This can be really helpful to sort of outline your flowers, you see? Any that are just coming over the top. And then, just whilst it's still wet. Just going to put in the beginnings of some detail on there. I think if you've got a very if you've painted one part of your painting very stylized, like we have with our loose watercolour, then it's a real choice as to whether you then do your watering can in the same style, or if you go for something different. It'll make it, I don't think there's any right or wrong as such, but those choices you make will impact the style of the finished piece. Okay, I'm going to let that dry and then we'll go back in for just a little bit of detail once it's done. Right, that's dried up nicely, so I'm going to take a 2/10 brush and a bit of more concentrated Payne's grey to now just create a bit of detail. You can see it's still nice and sort of imperfect and wobbly and even dry brushed at times. It's really important to sort of embrace simple mark making and see it as just as worthy as photorealistic art, or accurate in inverted commas art, because art is about conveying a feeling as much as it is about conveying a clear image. I want to give a sense of a nice sort of playful approach to spring with lovely flowers in a watering can. I'm not worried about the watering can or the flowers being like perfect or anything. I just want there to be a playful fun to it. And so to finish off, I've just got a bit of burnt sienna in with the Payne's grey, and we're just gonna create a little bit of shadow. On the flowers there, and of course on the and there we have a lovely springtime bouquet in a watering can. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!